Um, so taking this into account, as you said, this is something that maybe the first time you look at it, you wouldn't really think of the word art in itself, or the first idea that people think of when they think about art. And taking this into account, could you also explain how does an industrial product become part of MoMA? Because this is also another thing that I think is really interesting. How is an industrial product considered art? And why does, when does it start for MoMA to take an interest in this type of products?
Sure. Well, I think that there's an important thing that I should clarify here, and it's that even though, for the initial curators and for, even curators to today, design can be displayed sort of like and shown as art within the museum realm, it should not be seen as art for it to have merit. So for us within sort of like, particularly in the Department of Architecture and Design, and I would hope in other institutions that deal with design, we think that, industrial or any design product is worthy of being in a museum because they are design, not because they are art. And so the way in which we sort of like look at what, for example, enters into the collection, which I think is what your question is sort of like going to. It really sort of like, it depends, as I mentioned, it depends. There is no clear criteria. It really depends on sort of like on the time. And as I mentioned, it depends on the curators. There are a lot of, like, we'd like to say that there are a lot of different kinds of curators, from like the historian to the researcher to sort of like the reporter curator. But a lot involves sort of like investigating, a lot of research. We try to use exhibitions as sort of like as a way to sort of like start that research to make sure that we have enough information about an object that we are going to propose for acquisition into the collection. But I think overall there is this sense of like, at least within MoMA, that design should have a sort of like democratizing potential. And by that I mean that whether it's, a humble masterpiece, whether it's a new material, we think that design should be able to make lives of humans, and increasingly not just humans but also other species, better, by changing behaviors, by many different ways. So as I mentioned, there is really not a single sort of like, we don't really have a set of principles that say, good design means form and function. Not necessarily. It really we consider it on a case by case basis. And the way in which it works is that after, a curator has decided that there is this object or this, whatever design project that is worthy of being in the collection, we will go to the entire department as a group, and we will discuss it. And one of the important things that we also keep in mind is whether that project makes sense within the sort of like collection of ideas of our already existing holdings. So does it complement the themes and the sort of like areas of research that are important to us as an institution, whether it is, as I mentioned, humble masterpieces, or whether it is, the development of new materials, or, does it sort of like help us investigate new geographical regions that we didn't in the past, that we had not explored in the past. So very much keeping in mind that every single object that comes into the collection will be part of like a larger system.
Okay. Thank you for the explanation.